Hello and welcome to You're Wrong About Musicals. I'm Esme,
And I'm Nell.
and today we are going to be talking about Into the Woods. But first, I don't know, we haven't recorded in a moment. You guys haven't been able to tell because we kind of had a couple of episodes like saved up, and we're just releasing them at you whilst we were both starting university. I am sick, if you couldn't tell by the sound of my voice.
I'm
So
a little
this,
bit sick. I'm pulling through.
you
I
know,
think my voice is a bit,
eh, you sound better than I do, so well done. You know one of those bracelets that I always wear?
yeah.
I lost one of them on a night out.
Oh,
So yeah, not recorded in a while. Big, big episode last week, Phantom of the Opera, in honor of Nell's birthday. Again, everyone, if you haven't already, say happy birthday to Nell.
thank you.
She thanks you in advance. We've had some big news regarding the Gatsby musical. We are of course talking about the one in Paper Mill Playhouse. They released some of their first like rehearsal things. They didn't even release any full songs, and yet it has taken my heart by storm. I am so excited about it. I need a cast recording at the very least. I truly believe that it is going to transfer to Broadway this season.
Mm.
It kind of be like ridiculous not to, but we felt like it was important just to share that I have spent most of my time this week since it was like things were released thinking about the Gatsby musical. And Nell can attest to this because I don't even send you half of the thoughts I'm having about the Gatsby musical. Joe almost bought another copy of the book this week. So close to it. Anywho, on to today's Into the Woods. It is a musical.
Really? Is it?
Is it now? Is it now? It is a musical with music and lyrics by Stephen Sondheim and a book by James Lapine, which first premiered in 1987. Lapine basically wanted to write a fairy tale, and Sondheim longed to tell a quest story. Lapine found that writing a fairy tale from scratch was hard, and the individual classics were too brief for a full-length musical, but to weave the stories of Little Red Riding Hood, Jack, and Cinderella with the childless baker and his wife interconnected by a witch who told the life's hard truths provided a challenge. The concept came from a previous TV idea that was scrapped, in which Sondheim and Lapine imagined their favorite television characters meeting each other in a hospital waiting room. It just didn't happen because that kind of sounds like. Do you know the TV show Once Upon a Time?
Yeah.
Into the Woods is kind of like the musical theatre version of that.
I was gonna say it was like Clone High, but I feel like that's too weird of a reference.
No, I think I understand where you're coming from. When Lapine presented this epic interwoven fairy tale saga to Sondheim, he said, "You'll never be able to musicalize this," which naturally Sondheim went, "That's a challenge, my friend," and decided, "Let me write this musical." There were also like some other inspirations. So Grim Tales, obviously, they are taking the darker look at the musical at fairy tales than like Disney ever would.
Mm.
More personally, parts of the musical were taken from Sondheim's childhood, with him telling Time magazine in 1987 that the father uncomfortable with babies was his father, and the mother who regrets having children was his mother. The same article,
Jesus.
one of Sondheim's friends states, "He is the one person I know who truly hates his mother."
Jesus Christ.
And in the article, um, uh, he goes into the very messy details of his parents' divorce from like the
Oh my God.
40s. And
Oh
then
my God.
and then he starts talking about how Richard Rogers became a second father to him.
Oh my God.
It is the link will be available because it is truly a wild time. On the other hand, Lapine was like having a child around the time that he was writing Into the Woods, and so was just thinking about fatherhood. Whereas like Sondheim was just using it to get his mummy issues out.
Jesus
People
Christ.
keep asking him, being like, "What's the meaning of this?" And he's like, "Whatever you want. I don't fucking know." They did a workshop without costumes or sets where the performers wore baseball caps with signs on them signifying the character names, and then they like changed caps. The cast grouped around a piano bench and like became the trees in the woods. So it was like a GCSE drama teacher's wet dream. It first played at the San Diego Old Globe in 1986, where it would play 50 performances. Then it would transfer to Broadway at the Martin Beck Theatre, which is now the Al Hatchetfield Theatre, from the 5th of November 1987. When like it first opened, parents were scandalized because it is really dark. Basically, everyone dies in the second act.
Yeah, I know that.
And like Rapunzel gets banished to a desert, bores two twins, and then like gets killed.
Yes.
Yeah. So reviews. Newsday said Into the Woods blends imagination and playfulness with its very own special proportions. By the end of the musical, arrives with clearing the woods illuminated by an autumnal shafts of wisdom. Has not before it has followed the path slowed with beguiling songs that you've come to accept from Sondheim. The New York Post said it takes a look at adult fairy tales, linear romance. June doesn't have to rhyme with mood anymore, and there's a tune to go with
Now
it. Do you want to do the synopsis?
Yes, I'd love to. Little Red has strayed far from the path. Jack's found a second beanstalk. Prince Charming's eyes are wandering, and there's a witch living next door. Stephen Sondheim's most popular musical turns the world of fairy tales topsy-turvy, reminding us that granted wishes often bring complications. That is basically what I know that the plot is.
I freaking love this show. I think it's amazing. We'll get into my experiences with seeing it.
Oh yeah,
later.
I forgot you saw it.
I've seen the show. That's how because I tried listening to it and I was like, I don't actually understand this. And I'd seen the movie, and the movie's weird. Like the movie is not good. Anyway, I think it's amazing. I think it holds a lot of like meanings, and so it's one of those think of Into the Woods. I think of the crumbling of British democracy and American.
I'm so sorry.
Healthcare.
I just looked ahead on this fucking thing and I just seen 9/11 and the Giant.
Yes, we'll get to it. We will get to it. You see what I mean by this musical's really weird. Sondheim just used it as a way to get out his mummy issues, and then everyone was like, the giant is AIDS. So at first, when it first came out in the 80s, because basically the giant destroys the village, it destroys the community that all of the characters have like built in the first act, and then in the second act, the giant's wife actually like starts killing shit because Jack killed her husband. Okay. And like the giant just kind of comes through and destroys everyone and everything, and the characters all have to like band together to like defeat the giant.
Okay.
And so it was the 80s. AIDS was on the public mind, and so people start going, hey, this kind of unexpected force that kind of comes out of nowhere could be that makes community thrive, could be AIDS. Someone in the New Yorker said, among communal solidarity during the AIDS crisis, which at the time was stomping around the theatre world like an angry giant, Sondheim, like when you would ask Sondheim about it, R.I.P. legend, he would say like the giant is whenever you want it to be. And he like literally said the giant isn't the AIDS crisis.
To be fair to him, I think that's the right response.
Yeah.
Because saying the giant is the AIDS crisis does kind of force the musical to stay in the 80s. Whereas if you say the giant is whatever big disaster is striking the world right now, the giant is COVID-19.
We'll get to it.
And it is.
It is. The
giant is 9/11. It is. I think that does show the signs of a good musical, that it's so applicable.
It's so
stints.
And it's
because
also,
even if it was allegedly written about the AIDS crisis,
I think it might have been playing on his mind. But also his parents.
I could also see it just being like, yeah, I think the giant could also just be like growing up.
Yeah.
Like, you know, your childhood is all fairy tales. The world is so beautiful. You can be whatever
Yes.
you want to be. And then you actually grow up and it's like, we're fucked. The world is fucked. Everything is shit.
At any
Your
moment, a
village
mass
is being stomped on.
yeah, at any moment the giant can appear and completely destroy your
Yeah.
way of life and everyone you've ever loved. And that's what makes the musical so interesting and
Yeah.
so
And
good.
I think like definitely that, like what you just said about how it can appear from anywhere, will kill everyone you love, is definitely that's why it gets assigned to such specific like events like AIDS, like 9/11 apparently. And
Yeah.
definitely you could say like COVID. You could say the giant is a 2008 financial crash.
Yes. Yeah,
And it is.
it is. But like I think what this constant assigning of meaning to the giant is almost like trying to find a way to talk about tragedies, like
Mm,
assign meaning to tragedies, which I think we're still trying to do with COVID, but are failing.
yeah.
Um,
In part, I think this constant assigning it to like specific tragedies and specific events,
yeah,
you could argue it kind of downplays maybe what it was originally intended to be. Because if you go with the idea that the giant is just life,
yeah, the
that
giant
its
is,
stuff
yeah,
gets fucked, everything goes wrong, fuck it, it's shit,
yeah,
then you can definitely say that that's something you have to deal with. So I think if you say that originally or in some aspect the giant is meant to just be life and stuff goes wrong,
yeah.
but that you do keep going on, that life continues, kids will be bored, kids will grow up, stuff keeps happening.
Like there is
Then I
always
feel
a
like
new generation, and like they are
yeah,
never alone. There's a bigger ecosystem happening.
yeah. I feel like in part then if you do assign a specific tragedy to the giant, it kind of downplays that because it's like, actually, life can be perfect. Life can be a fairy tale. Sometimes one bad thing happens, and
Yeah,
then after that, it'll be good again.
that's why
Whereas,
no, go ahead.
no, I was actually just going to say, I feel like because both of them are good points, that
Yeah,
sometimes something very specifically bad does happen that fucks you up, you have to keep going. And sometimes life just happens and you
yeah.
have to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, Sondheim's direct quote of it was, "We never meant for it to be this specific. The trouble with fables is that everyone always looks for symbolism.
Yeah.
We are always looking for meaning." And again, when they redid it in 2002, after obviously the events of really soon after 9/11, obviously
Mm.
people foresaw this thing about a giant literally destroying homes and lives, and community banding together and went, oh, that's like what's going on now. Um, and some critics picked up on it. But that's what you just said about life, like being about like life not just being fairy tales, is what makes the second act so important to the story.
Mm.
Because a lot of people see the first act and they're like, I'm done. When I saw it,
I I did remember seeing that in the revival you saw, and I
yeah,
specifically remember it was one you saw. It was like a ton of people were walking out after Act One, and some were like, "Just don't do this. Like, I get it if you don't like it, but please stay for Act Two." And then someone responded to it, I was like, actually, I do like it. This is for me because sometimes I just want a happy ending." It's
don't
like,
go
well,
see Into
then
the
don't
fucking
see Into
Woods.
the Woods.
Know how it's gonna end. Like, no, like when I saw it with my father, shout out dad,
Oh yeah.
he he we got to the end of Act One, and like the end of Act One is called Ever After, so it doesn't really help
Mm.
because um they're all singing Every After, journey over, story ended, and not just for today. Um, and then they go to be continued, and then the beanstalk starts going. But most of the audience think it's like the end. And so my dad looked at me and went, "Oh, so it was a one act." I went, "No." He was like, "Yeah, I might have picked that up." So, on a lighter note, if we're still talking about politics, uh,
Always.
Hillary Clinton played the Giant's wife at one point.
Okay, icon.
Oh, it's this thing with like she played it in Arkansas, like a regional
Interesting.
theater in Arkansas.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is
So
she from Arkansas?
I think she was like the governor, like I think, oh, what's her husband called? Bill Clinton. Um,
Who is Hillary Clinton's husband?
okay, I'm sick.
Who is Hillary Clinton's husband, Esme?
Bill Clinton. He was like once the state governor of Arkansas or something. There's some connection there. But the thing with the Giant's wife is that they often
I'm
get like
looking.
a really famous person to play her because she can not appear on stage.
Yeah.
However, in the production that I saw, they had like this woman come on stage and they had like a stage hand following her with this mic, put it down in the center of the stage and had her like walk up to it. So it gave this really menacing appearance when it was actually just a little old lady.
Mm. Hold on, I'm going on Hillary Clinton's Wikipedia page. Like, post 2016 election activities. This will be it, I reckon.
Year in 2021. It was announced in 2021. It took place in 2022.
Apparently not on her Wikipedia page.
It definitely happened.
Cultural and political image,
Yeah, Hillary
perhaps.
Clinton. Here's the AP, Associated Press.
This is definitely something that should be on her Wikipedia page.
What should be on the Wikipedia page?
That she was in Into the Woods.
Yeah,
Into Yeah, I can find if I search it up, it comes up, but it's not like
yeah. I think anyone being in Into the Woods should be on their
oh
Wikipedia
wow,
page.
they really have some like high profile people play this.
Yeah,
Judi Dench, Whoopi Goldberg.
they can literally just play it. But I think it's not. I think it's fun when the person comes on stage and like does the Giant's wife.
It was part of the process after the election to come to terms with having lost and my personal disappointment in letting millions of people down. Also, my fears about what a Trump presidency might mean for our country and the world. So I had a lot to think about. And I think well when I'm walking, I sort of clear my
Of
mind.
course, I got to do her playing the.
Oh no.
Is that just the quote she gave when asked?
Yeah, apparently she famously took to walking in the woods following her failed presidential race in 2017, claiming he jaunts around the he
She's talking about
that the
Jack.
jaunts around the forest of upstate New
Oh,
York were a source of beauty and comfort.
thank you, Hillary, for that statement.
Okay.
Happy for you or sad that it happened?
Apparently she hasn't said anything about the role.
Right. So Hillary Clinton just did
Yeah.
Into the
She just did it.
She just did it because Donald Trump became president, and so she had nothing else better to do.
Yeah, but by that time Biden was president.
Yeah, Hillary's probably constantly living in the Trump administration.
I know.
Um, Anywho, there is also the thing of feminism.
Yes.
James Lapine said fairy tales generally have more women characters than men, and the men tend to be weak, prince-like cutouts. The women are usually stronger in the stories, so we make them stronger as well. That was a given. And again, the one song that like the princes sing is called Agony, and they are being.
I know that one.
Yeah, I know exactly the performance of it. You know as well.
I know that one.
It's normally performed like that, and the 2022 Broadway revival.
Yes.
They had
I'm
Andy
aware of
Carl.
it.
They had Andy Carl as one of the princes for a short period of time. Do you know
Oh
what
my
I would have done to get Andy Carl be one of those fucking princes?
I wish I'd seen him in it. I love Andy Carl.
We love Andy Carl. But, and then there's also the whole thing of the baker's wife not having a name, which to me is very Curly's wife from Mice and Men.
Yeah.
So Sarah Bareilles said it started with me really
Of course Sarah Bareilles said something.
Well,
No
she
hate to her.
played her. She played
That
her.
sounds rude, but of all the people who I am aware have played the baker's wife, I would expect Sarah Bareilles to speak on her not having a name.
Yeah. Anyway,
Continue.
that will be really early on, day one of rehearsal, that she doesn't have a name. Of course, neither does the baker, but at least he's not named in relation to his spouse. She's the baker's wife. She's a possessive term by title, so I gave her a name. She's Rebecca in my mind.
Boring name. Sorry, Sarah Bareilles. You could
I
have
don't
picked
know.
something more
Some
fun.
something also really interesting that's been said about the Bakers. That's how I'm going to refer to
Mm.
them now. Can't be able to say the whole thing. Um, is that they are almost the grounding force in the musical. So you've got all of these fairy tale characters running around, and then you've just got like the Bakers being like, I need to go please the witch so I can have a child and like be done with all of this. Creates this really interesting dynamic. Let's get into the 1988 Tony Awards, which we briefly touched
Let's.
on last year. Not last year. Last
Yeah,
year. Feels like a year.
it's not been that long.
It's been 3 weeks. Last week. Because a little known show also came in that season. What could it be? So for some context, so we can fully set the scene. So the year before, the 1987 Tony Awards, Les Mis, it was the season Les Mis had happened. So Les Mis Insanity has just swept the Tonys. It
Yeah,
managed to win 8 Tony Awards. It was also the season Starlight Express came in.
guys, I can't believe they kicked Newsies out of its theatre to put Starlight Express there. And
Oh
we're
my
gonna go
god.
see Starlight Express. The second
Boys.
that I signed up for pre-sale,
Of
we are
course you
going to Starlight
have. Of course you
Express.
have. Paris texted me about it and I was like, yeah, that was making me go.
And don't worry, Karis.
Don't worry, Karis. And she was like, I never did. Um, yeah, so Starlight Express somehow was nominated for 7 awards. So, you know, maybe the Tonys weren't feeling so favourable towards Andy or the British or Cameron.
Why?
Because Starlight fucking Express.
Yeah.
I think maybe this was them starting to get tired of the British mega musical.
It was the 80s.
End of the 80s. So
They
anyway.
only had mega musicals. They could have given Phantom. And Phantom, I will say, has a chandelier. Starlight Express has a bridge. Phantom is far less of a mega musical.
But yeah, it's like one of the most popular ones. They might have been a bit bored with the British and the mega musicals, leading to Into the Woods getting some wins over Phantom. So
I can accept that Into the Woods definitely deserved some Tonys.
yes, we're gonna talk about it in 2 seconds. I know
No, but
exactly
what I
what we're about.
disagree with is Score going to Into the Woods over Phantom.
Okay, we're gonna talk about it in like 2 seconds. At the awards ceremony, they Into the Woods performed Into the Woods, the opening number, and then the closing number, Children Will Listen.
Okay.
Whilst Phantom of the Opera performed Phantom of the Opera and Music of the Night.
Okay. Bad second song choice.
Yeah, but Michael Crawford.
Michael Crawford, I love you. I think you're up there as one of the best Phantoms ever. You originated the role. You fought with Cameron McIntosh on Lambeth Bridge. So I have a lot of respect for you. They need to stop putting Music of the Night on like performances. We went to West End Live. They performed Music of the Night. Christine stood on stage. She didn't do anything. She stood there. It was Holly Ann Hall. We saw Holly Ann Hall. She was incredible. She's a great actress. She's a great singer.
She did sing at West End Live though, I swear.
Yeah, she did Wishing You Were Somehow Here Again. Best song in the show.
It is
And
genuinely
then
the best song of the show.
I'm gonna feel so bad, but I do not remember her name off the top of my head. But the alternate Christine
Oh, they did
then
Phantom.
did no, they did All I Ask of You with Raoul.
Oh
And then the
yes!
Phantom came on and sang for like 20 minutes about the goddamn music of the night while Christine wandered along beside him in a trance. Great acting by Holly Ann Hull. If they did Phantom of the Opera at the Tonys, they could have just done Masquerade.
Oh, that's I don't get
It's
why
the
they
best
don't.
song. It's one of the best songs. If they do Phantom of the Opera, they do that song, and then Masquerade. Stop doing Music of the Night. Masquerade is one of the best songs. You
I
get the
don't
whole cast on stage.
I don't get why they don't do Masquerade, like a pared down version of Masquerade more.
Yeah, it's a good song. Anyways,
Anyways, Into the Woods
we're
was
about to fight.
3 Tony Awards, being Best Score, which its official title is Best Original Score and or lyrics written for the theatre. God, I just said that so much.
Theatre.
Theatre.
The
They
theatre.
were basically giving it to Into the Woods for the lyrics. They weren't giving it for the score.
And I will accept, Sondheim, great lyricist. He doesn't even really, he does do lyrics.
Oh no, sometimes the lyricist
Yeah.
of all time. Um,
Yeah, he does. They're very hard to sing. They're great lyrics.
some of the
And
bars
you
that he
have to
is
have a lot of talent to do it.
some of the bars that he is at Annalie Ashford. Not gonna get into it. Um, some of the like things that he says, I think about on a daily basis. Like the whole idea of children and art from Sunday in the Park with George. You know that the rumored revival is finally coming to the West End.
Yeah,
Apparently,
I saw.
so excited! It's such a weird musical. Anyway, um, I think about children and art on the daily basis. I also think about the witches lining into the woods. You're not good. You're not bad. You're just nice.
Anyways, that being said, Sondheim, great lyricist. He definitely deserved a Tony for his lyrics. However, the Phantom of the Opera. And again, when you list I get that its full title is Best Score or Lyrics.
You should just give it to him because of how iconic the overture is alone.
Not only, okay, I know I just like complained for like 2 minutes straight about Music of the Night. The score for Music of the Night is beautiful. And you're gonna have to forgive me for the sentence I'm about to say. I was just reading Andy's book, and he literally said, it's in my bag, so I don't think I can like grab it very quickly and read it to you.
Why were you like carrying around?
So I got to my uni like campus early and I had to like kill some time. So I was like, fuck it, I know I'm gonna get there early, so I'll bring the book and I'll do a bit of reading of it.
Okay.
And I'll read you the section, which is another point of why I think he should have gotten best score. Oh my God, he actually has the entire notes for what Act One was meant to be. We spent a lot of time examining key musical motifs. Nothing in the Phantom score is random. That
Uh-huh.
alone is a quote I could use. For
Okay.
example, Monsieur Firmon's line in scene one, "Good heavens, will you show a little courtesy?" is deliberately set to the descending musical line of the title song. Da, 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 da,
Yeah,
da,
yeah, yeah,
da,
yeah.
da, da. The scene shift of bouquets, "Please, Monsieur, don't look at me," echoes roused a collector's piece indeed from the prologue,
Yeah.
which in turn becomes the music for the Phantom's song Notes.
Okay. So, but Into the Woods has similar motifs. It has
Nothing
similar.
in the Phantom score is random.
Yeah, same with Into the Woods. The springy step that introduces it is the sound that become the beans sound or the bean theme. And like every time one of those is thrown, it's like a thing.
I'm not saying that like Into the Woods doesn't have motifs. Every single musical has motifs. Every single musical
Yeah.
will have reoccurring themes in every single song, in every single action, every single performance that will ever be done of it. What I'm saying is, I think Phantom should have gotten best score.
Okay. I don't we're not fighting about the book because obviously James Lapine, that book is great.
Oh yeah, I'm not going to talk about the book. Listen, I said that at the start. Into the Woods deserved Tonys. I
Yeah.
think it won what, 3 Tonys?
Three Tonys. So it won best score, best book, and then best leading actress for Joanna Gleason as the baker's wife.
Yeah, and I'm not going to dispute the other two. And
Yeah.
in all honesty, I'm not even disputing best score that much because, especially since it includes lyrics, Sondheim definitely deserves a Tony for his lyrics.
All the
For
time.
basically any of his musicals.
Yeah.
And I'm not even saying the music is bad. I think the music in Into the Woods is very good. What I'm saying is, if you
Yeah.
put Phantom of the Opera and Into the Woods together, Phantom has a better score.
Yeah, no, and also what you mentioned last week about it being iconic. Like
Yeah,
with hindsight, it's so easy to see that the Phantom score will live on.
yeah.
And obviously that hindsight wasn't around anyway.
Again, I think if I was in the moment, would I be this angry? I'm not even
Yeah.
angry,
This
but
passionate?
this passionate about Into the Woods getting the Tony. No, because Into the Woods is a good musical. It has a good score, it has good lyrics. If Phantom was out of the equation, yes, Into the Woods, 100%. It's purely because it was against Phantom and Phantom didn't win,
I think that this was like the 80s version of 2017.
literally. But also, if I told you right now, imagine you have never heard of the outcome of this particular Tony Awards.
Yeah.
And I said in what was it, 88?
80, yeah, 88, yeah.
If I said the 1988 Tony Awards, Phantom of the Opera won Best Score, you would say, of course.
Yeah,
Of
I'd be
course
like,
it
that
did.
makes
It's
checks out.
Phantom of the Opera.
But then also Into the Woods winning.
But then if I said, and it won against Into the Woods, you'd be like, of course it did. It's Phantom of the Opera. Into the
Okay,
Woods
yeah.
is good, but you can see how Phantom would win
Yeah.
against it.
Yeah.
When I say in the 1988 Tony Awards, Phantom lost Best Score to Into the Woods, you say, did it really?
No,
I
I
guess
say
I
it
can see
checks
how.
out.
No, everyone else, apart from you, because you're a fucking Into the Woods stan,
I am an Into the Woods
says,
fan, yeah.
did it? Really? I guess I can see how. Into the Woods is really good. Maybe it deserved it. But if I said Phantom won, if I went up to someone who had a very basic knowledge of musicals, I could go downstairs and do this to my housemate right now. And I say, do you know who won the 1988 Tony Award for Best Score? And I'll give you a hint. It's between Phantom and Into the Woods. Who do you think they're going to pick?
They're gonna pick Phantom because they know it.
Exactly. That's
Okay.
why I'm passionate about this.
Okay. In other news,
You see
uh,
my point, though.
yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from. It
This
was
isn't anything. I want to make it very clear. This isn't me hating on Into the Woods. I think Into the Woods is great. I just wanted Phantom to win.
yeah,
When I was very much alive in 1988.
very much like a person in 1988
Yeah.
for the Tony Awards. It goes back to the idea that Andy has beef with Sondheim since they
Yeah.
were born on the same
I
day.
can understand why now.
Yeah, they were born on the same day, and Sondheim was like basically adopted by Richard Rogers,
Yeah.
and you know that hurt Andy's feelings.
Oh, he had to write a whole musical about one of his little characters getting contacted by Hammerstein.
You know how you baby girls Andy?
Yeah.
I baby girl Sondheim. Like I was reading
Like,
about his
like
life in that Time article, and I was like, he's just so cute. He just like
I
he
can't
lived
even fault you for it.
he lived in this like townhouse in New York with all of his cats, and like he
Aw.
would just like hang out and like write his musicals.
Hey,
And the interviewer said that like the curtains were like threadbare because his cats would just play with them and he would just let them.
I thought you hated cats.
I don't hate cats, but I like the idea of like Sondheim having cats.
Yeah, it has dogs, Andy.
Yeah,
So
I
get your
know.
priorities in
He
check.
posts every year for
Oh yeah,
International
all the
Dog
time.
Day. He posts more about my dogs than I do. I rarely post about my dogs actually.
You post with your dogs a lot,
Yeah,
just
but
not
not like
about
not
them.
about them. They're just there because there's so many of them. Anyway, so when he died, Andrew was obviously contacted for a statement,
Yeah.
and he said, "I don't know him well. I had a wonderful lunch with him once. I remember at the Neal Street restaurant in the late 70s, we actually talked about doing a musical together. It was going to be about rivalry, which never got anywhere. I don't
Yep.
even know what a Sondheim and Andrew Lloyd Webber musical would look like.
Well, it would probably win best score.
It would just be the most batshit crazy thing you've ever seen in your life."
The thing I was gonna say about this that I mentioned I had something to say on it is because you've written he really found a way to make this about himself.
Yeah.
I just want to make it clear when someone dies, you do. You say, I knew them really well. We were best friends. We did all of this stuff together,
No,
and
he
I'm
didn't
really
say.
gonna miss them.
He didn't say
Or you
like
say, I didn't know him that well, but he seems like a great guy. I didn't
no,
know him that well, but I'm sure he'll be missed.
no, he didn't
You
say
make
like
it about yourself. I
he
don't
didn't
want to
say
defend
like
Andrew Lloyd Webber,
he didn't
but
say like, oh, what a legendary theatre composer is so inspired by him. I went for lunch with him once. Lol.
yeah, he's dead. I didn't know him that well, but we had a conversation. We wanted to work together. On defending Andrew Lloyd Webber, but isn't him being like completely inept at being like a normal person.
He
That's
is
what you
though.
say when someone, he was in many other ways, but that's just what you say when someone dies.
Yeah. Tim Rice's thing about him was nice. Rice.
Yeah. Him and
Um,
Andy are besties. Well, they were at least. I
they
don't know
were. I
what
don't.
their vibes are
Well,
now.
he's referred to in the memoir as just Rice, so
Rice,
he's not made it to first
Rice,
names.
Cameron,
Therapy.
Terry, Michael Crawford.
Michael.
You know, Bernadette Peters was first named as just it was a win for Bernadette. I think he referred to her as Bernie at one point, but I didn't read it in enough depth to like understand if that was actually about her.
Time for Sarah B, but Bernadette Peters is
Michael Crawford is Michael Crawford. This book brings us a lot of joy.
you can tell we're massive fans of this book. I'm gonna have a coughing fit in a moment. The original Broadway run would close on the 3rd of September 1989. Massive year for pop culture.
Ooh.
Didn't
Ooh.
last as long because it's not
Close. Do you know
Phantom.
what didn't close until really recently? Ooh.
Fuck's sake, man.
But didn't win best score?
Off. Well, Into the Woods is like 3 hours about like childhood and like mortality and how life is full of unpredictability,
Yeah. And
predictable
Phantom of the
lives.
Opera is as if an ugly man like Andrew Lloyd Webber can be loved. And which one has been open for longer? So I
Yeah, exactly.
don't care how good it is.
One might be more palatable for a mainstream audience. So there is a version of it. There's a children's version of Into the Woods. They completely
Okay.
cut the second act to the school version.
I mean, I can kind of understand why.
I understand why, but as I said earlier, the whole point of Into the Woods is the second act, kind of. Don't get me wrong. First act, I was living my life. Second act, I was like, oh, mortality in it. After all of the children sing, Children Will Listen. So they still have the same finale. So they do Ever After. It's really weird. They do Ever After, and then they do Children Will Listen. Rapunzel doesn't die. She just gets banished. And
Okay.
it's been criticized as like not keeping the same message because you remove half the musical. James Lapine saying, the second act is the myth. People keep writing as if the second act is a continuation of what happens after Happy Ever After. But really, it's about growing up and real life and understanding the differences between real and fantasy. There's a part of all of us that expects somebody else to take care of important issues. It's crucial to say that if there comes a time when you can't, except your friends come up to the door and grab you, you have to go out and find a friend. Basically defending the second act, but being like, we still cut it because we wanted to make some money off of it.
I think it's like junior shows and kids shows will cut out a ton of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I've done Fame Junior twice now,
Junior. Fuck it out.
and they cut so much from what Fame is originally.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, Fame probably shouldn't be a junior production,
No.
but it
Fuck
is,
no.
and they cut things that like make the plot what it is,
It is. We all
and
have
you've
to
just
deal
got to
with
deal
it.
with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that though. I don't know. I feel like there is a way, and yeah, literally, they don't change any of the subtext, the plot between the Wolf and Little Red, because in the musical or like normally stage productions, there is a very predatory undertone.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
can imagine.
the song's called "Hello Little Girl," sung by a wolf. Interestingly was played by Johnny Depp in the movie.
Oh, so wow. How did he ever get in
Wow.
character for that? That's so crazy.
Um, yeah, and Rapunzel still ends up banished. There is even a senior production of Into the Woods.
Really?
Yeah. So it was a pilot production done at a senior center, with the version of the show being tweaked to the performers' abilities. Some performers reading lines and lyrics off of sheets, others did it from memory. Lapine was quoted as saying, "Theatre is kids' play, but it lets us put on a show, giving permission to do it at the other end of life. I think it's perfect. I think it's really sweet. I really like the idea of adapting shows for everyone to do them. Like if we're gonna
Yeah.
put all this importance in kids theatre, then retirees who've got the time and got the desire, let them do a show. Anyway, it was a really interesting read. Other notable productions. The original West End run opened in 1990 with a new song between The Witch and Rapunzel. It is called Our Little World. It takes place after Maybe They're Magic. It was not included in the original West End recording. It wasn't written until the London production. And it's like a duet between the two of them, and it's still done in like licensed productions today. Just none of the big productions, they like removed it again.
Why?
They can never work out how much they want Rapunzel and the witch to interact.
Okay.
Because they have a song in all productions called Stay Here With Me, which is basically our own little world, but like, I don't know. The 2002 revival, as we touched on earlier, some people have made the connection about it being about
I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh at that. Like, it is a good point.
It is a good point, but I just and then we're not talking about the movie in too much depth today. But if we
I
ever
have seen
do,
the movie.
The movie's an interesting time. Again, Rob Marshall was inspired to make it after hearing President Obama talk about 9/11.
God.
Anyway, there were some changes that were made. Sondheim and Lapine came up with having Jack and Little Red come on stage during Steps of the Palace and do like reprises of their song about like what they've learned about like growing up and coming of age during their time in the woods. There were other smaller changes, but it's not important. Like they just like kind of messed with it in really strange ways. Also, once we're on the topic, I really love I Know Things Now. It is a banger of a tune, and I really love the lyric. Isn't it nice to know, right at the end of the song, isn't it nice to know a lot, be, and a little bit not? That is what growing up is all about. Anyway, the other kind of important thing that I thought would be interesting to touch on is Laura Benanti's back breaking during this performance, during this run. Yeah. So in her own words, during the 2002 revival of Into the Woods, she was doing a pitfall, the second one, where she ran down the stairs and fell flat onto her belly. But instead, one night, her legs went up over her head and she heard her neck snap. She had so much adrenaline that she kept going. By the end of the show, she couldn't feel her body. She had 2 herniated discs. She was misdiagnosed. They told her that the discs had herniated to her side, when actually they were herniated directly on her spinal cord, cutting off spinal fluid.
Jesus.
The event was not publicized. She was not allowed to talk about it. She claims, unfortunately, producers of the show were very unkind to me. When questioned for comment, they would say that not that I'd injured myself, but basically said, "Oh, it's a shame that Laura has to miss so many shows. There was a lot of gossip. It was really hurtful. It was a horrible time." She now, at the time that this article was written, which was like the 2000s, she had myelopathy, which is 30% loss of feeling and strength and dexterity in her arms and face because of the injury. Basically, the injury went so misdiagnosed that, like, if someone had shoved her too hard on the street, then she could have been paralyzed. So that was pretty horrific for her. Yeah, if someone had pushed her too hard, she would have been paralyzed. And the really interesting thing is that around the time she was not allowed to talk about it. But obviously, if you've broken your fucking back, you're not going to be able to. You're not going to be able to run around singing on the steps of the palace every night. Especially because singing, you do really have to use that entire area.
Yeah.
And so people started thinking that she was just like a bad worker who didn't show up to fucking work. When in reality, she'd just broken her back. So anyway, thoughts of Laura Benanti. So happy that I think she said in interviews since that it's fine, but from what I can tell, it sounds really traumatic. Anywho, they have done 2 productions of it in parks, like open air spaces, which Into the Woods is the perfect open air show, in my personal opinion. Other than the one that hasn't happened yet, the Regent's Park one took place in 2010, with it being a new staging of the show that had not been seen. There is a pro shot of this version. It's on Broadway HD, Our Enemy. However, it is on this service called Digital Theatre, which you could just rent it.
Which is a slightly better option.
Like, if you're gonna watch it, you don't give your money to Broadway HD.
Yeah.
The only difference is that the narrator is played by a small child who is lost in the woods following a family argument.
Okay.
Which
An
I
interesting
thought
choice.
was a choice. And so obviously they had someone else playing the mysterious man. Then that also meant that they sacrificed a small child to the giant instead of Jack,
Jesus.
which I think is pretty like insane. Anyway, I would like to watch that pro shot. I just don't want to give money to Broadway HD. In 2012, they transferred the production to the public theatre during their they do free performances every summer in the public theatre, which I really like. With American cast, new designers, Amy Adams as the baker's wife.
Damn.
And Chip Zed, who originally played the baker as the mysterious man, because normally the mysterious man and the narrator are shared by one person. It's very postmodern. It's very breaking the fourth wall. Again,
Wow.
I had to explain it to my dad when we saw it. Central Park production was dedicated to Nora Ephron. Do you know who Nora Ephron is?
No. I think I should.
She was a writer who wrote about politics. Her
Okay.
husband was involved in the Watergate scandal, and then he cheated on her when she was pregnant. And then she wrote a book called Heartburn about it, which is quite famous.
Okay.
I have no idea why they dedicated the production of Into the Woods to her.
Yeah.
I couldn't see the connection. I looked so far. And yeah, I found two sources saying not this production was dedicated to Nora Ephron. Just no reasoning.
I mean, interesting.
Again, they did the thing where they did special performances for children, but they only did the first act. Again, I don't get what's in the first act that's not in the second act. That's in the first act that's not as horrific. I think it might just be a time thing.
I mean, maybe in part.
But other than the baker's wife dying and Rapunzel actually dying, okay, the witch screaming at people could be quite scary. But she screams at them all the time. Yeah, and Hello Little Girl is still about grooming. They never change Hello Little Girl, which I don't think they should because it works really well as the song. The
Maybe they're
movie,
using it to warn kids.
yeah, but if you're gonna let that in, then why not let the baker's wife have her affair?
I feel like an affair is a little bit deeper.
Well, she decides to go back to her husband and then she gets murdered by the giant.
Yeah, it's imagine, because parents get divorced all the time. Imagine if you're a 10-year-old kid, maybe younger, and you hear that your parents are getting divorced because your fucking mum had an affair, and your only thought is, oh my God, she's gonna get killed by a giant.
Yeah, fair. The movie, there were talks for years, but there were nothing concrete. It was eventually made in 2014 with the guy who did the Chicago movie being tapped to direct it. There's a really interesting thing that I would like to share with you. Laura Osnes was originally Rob Marshall did it. Sorry. Rob Marshall directed it, and so he held a reading full of musical theatre people to work out whether or not the script would work. Laura Osnes was in the original reading as Rapunzel.
I would have given anything
to have Laura Osnes make her proper debut. Maybe then she could have been in that how celebrities got cancelled and lost their careers thing.
To be fair, the reason they gave was a pretty good one.
No, I stand by the reason, but she's not a celebrity. Sorry, Laura. Actually, no.
She's to me, she is.
Yeah, the insane thing is to us, she's A-list.
Yeah.
It's when I sent you that thing of Jeremy Jordan performing.
Yeah, there cannot be this many Jeremy Jordan fans.
I actually, after seeing how many views the Gatsby clips have got,
I thought that was just you putting them on repeat.
No, yeah, it is okay. So something half of them are me, but they've still at least got 1 million views. Anyway, if anyone would like to send us some money so we can go see the Gatsby musical,
I'll gladly accept it.
we will give you whatever content you want if you let us go see Gatsby. As I said, the movie was eventually made in 2014. It had a budget of 50 million and grossed $213 million worldwide.
Jesus.
Disney produced the movie, which was always an interesting choice because it's like about the darker side of fairy tales. I don't know. It was during the time that like Once Upon a Time was really like kicking off.
Yeah.
And so I guess they could have really like got into that. They did make changes. Mark Platt, the dad of Ben Platt, and the Wicked, was the lead producer of the movie. Changes, obviously, there were songs that were cut, like the Act 1 finale, Act 2 prologue, and sections of the actual finale. The baker doesn't learn that his father has been resurrected, that his father is actually alive. Rapunzel doesn't die. The princes have less character development, and the film is narrated by James Corden.
I do know that.
Yeah, because he's the baker. And the mysterious man is no longer a character. Right, time for me to be really annoying.
Uh-oh.
We're talking about the 2022 revival.
Okay.
I'm
gonna eat ice, so I'm gonna mute. But just wave at me if you want me to say something. I will be listening.
Okay. Nell's felt the need to eat some ice right now, so let's be real. I could do this part without her. There might be one part where I might need some input from her. In November 2020, it was announced that Into the Woods was going to be doing a stage concert at New York City Centre as a part of Encores, but because it was 2020, they did not set a date for any of these plans. Finally, in August of 2021, they announced that they would be running from the 4th of May to the 15th of May in 2022. Alongside this casting, they announced that Heather Headley would be the witch, Sarah Bareilles as the baker's wife, and Christian Borle as the baker, and Ashley Park as Cinderella. In November of 2022, after Sondheim's death, R.I.P. legend, they announced that it would be done in his honour and in his memory. Danae Benton was then cast as Cinderella since Ashley Park had to drop out because of scheduling conflicts, and Neil Patrick Harris would be taking on the role as Baker due to Christian Borle dropping out. Which I feel like the jump in like ticket sales that you would have seen after casting Neil Patrick Harris compared to Christian Borle would have been massive. Nelson, say something.
So I likely had to announce it. I was just gonna say, I feel like it's gonna be two very different demographics.
Yes, yeah.
Like who Christian Borle brings in and who Neil Patrick Harris brings in are very different.
Yeah, no. Like, one are gonna be like falsettos fans, and the other one's gonna be like someone who watched How I Met Your Mother and thinks it'd be fun to see him in a musical. So it did its Encores production and it was amazing. I have not seen it, so I can't tell you, but we'll get to it. 2 weeks later, it announced after playing Encores that it would be transferring to Broadway with some cast changes, with Brian Darcy James as the baker, Patina Miller as the witch, and Philippa Sue set to be playing Cinderella. It was originally set to be an 8-week engagement on Broadway, with performances starting the 28th of June and opening the 10th of July. On the 6th of July, 2022, I saw the show. Yeah, this is the production of Into the Woods that I saw. I saw a matinee of it. It was a Wednesday. So I said earlier that I associate Into the Woods with the crumbling of British democracy. Around that time, Boris Johnson was set to resign at any given moment. And so I remember saying to myself, when I leave this theatre, Boris Johnson could have resigned. And I have that memory so vividly in my head. Yeah, so whenever I think about Into the Woods now, I think about the fact that Boris Johnson almost resigned when I was at Into the Woods, which would have been rude because it was a stacked cast, an amazing production. Honestly, one of the best things I've seen. I kind of went in a little bit blind, not really knowing that much about it. We also had amazing seats. We were in like row 4 of the stalls. Got them from TKTS that day. The night before, I'd been at Beetlejuice. I had to go and get a playbill for now. Do you still have the Beetlejuice playbill I got you? It was a thing. I was like, I have to get a Beetlejuice playbill for now. Because if I didn't, then that would be like the end of our friendship. Yeah. Um, and because it was previews and so early on, they there were like some people there that knew Gavin Creel, like sat in front of us, and this woman like had her phone out and was like pointing it upwards. So I just like was looking at the Nell's now showing the camera her Beetlejuice playfield. She's still eating her ice, so she's got the Mean Girls. That's coming to the West End. Do I think I'm going to see it when it goes to the West End? Yeah, Nell's just got it. Nell, will you see it?
Yes, I will.
Okay, because I
I
have
just
an
want to say I got the greatest text from Esme, which was I'm beginning to think Mean Girls the musical isn't actually as good as I thought it was.
yeah.
And I've never been so happy because I've been kind of nice about it for way too long because Esme loved it.
I don't love it now. I really want to see it now and like
Oh yeah, we have
be
to see it.
be critical about it. But I want to go if I can on like the 6 year anniversary of me seeing it. I
Yeah.
think that'd be a nice full circle moment. But no, yeah, so this woman, right, in front of us, she had her phone like slanting upwards and she was like texting and she had her text massive. And so I was just trying to look at the houses on stage. You know, it was either that or watch Boris Johnson be kicked out of Downing Street. Um, and so I could see her like texting Gavin Creel, and I was like, babes, calm down. But no, it was great. They were also quite annoying in front of us. They just like, I don't know, they were kind of annoying. Um, and my dad famously said at the end of Act One, "Is it over? It's over."
That would have been me.
You would have been like, "We should have gone to see Beetlejuice again."
Yeah.
Um, yeah, you would have been like, "I want to go see this thing. It's called Phantom
I would have loved to see Phantom on Broadway.
because it's across the street." Um, yeah, it was an iconic experience. I did stage door. It was the last time I ever stage doored something because I felt like I had to.
I think you did have to. It was for the pursue.
Bit of a fucking thing. I remember texting you and being like, "Can Boris Johnson sort his shit out for like 2.5 hours so I could enjoy this musical?" Um, and then interestingly, one of the things. Oh yeah, and then I had to like explain the plot, like the meaning of Into the Woods to my dad afterwards. He was like, why does everyone love the witch? She's kind of the villain. And I was like, yeah, but like she's kind of like a panto character
Mm.
in the way that everyone loves to hate her. Like she's so over the top, she's so dramatic. Like you kind of just have to love her. And then we went for pizza at this really great pizza place, and I am going somewhere with this. Um, New York
Are
pizza.
you?
I am actually. So 2 weeks before I went, Roe v. Wade had just been overturned.
I remember that.
We all unfortunately remember that. And so I was sat in this pizza place and they have the radio on and they're playing an Into the Woods thing. And also I'm having to explain to my dad why these people are so famous. Because they're at the level of famous where they're like A-lists to me and like you probably listening and definitely now.
Yeah.
So I'm sat there trying to explain the importance of Philippa Sue, Brian Darcy James, Gavin Creel. Unfortunately, not Andy Carl because he wasn't in the show, but I would have loved to see Andy Carl. Joshua Henry, like all of these big. Sarah Bareilles was really easy actually. I was just be like, she's a singer-songwriter. She's been nominated for a ton of Grammys. And then all of a sudden, a advert comes on saying, "Here in New York City, we're committed to protecting your reproductive rights." And I was like, oh God, I had momentarily forgotten that this country is also a fire in politics. And then I was like, oh, that makes sense. That like now that I have that context, it makes sense because there's a line in the show where Jack's mother, not Milky White. Milky White was amazing though. The cow. The cow was such fun. Jack's mother and the baker's wife are having a conversation about being a mother, and so Jack's mother's like, "Oh, have you seen my son? Like he's about this tall." And she's like, "Yeah. He loves the cow. I've seen the man." And she's like, "Oh, do you have any children?" And she goes, no. And she goes, and then Jack's mother goes, that's all right too. And when she said that, people started cheering.
Yeah.
And at first, I was like, when I was first there, I was like okay, like cool. And then I heard that advert, and I went, oh fuck. That line, which when they wrote it in the 80s, was probably just like a more to do with the plot. Yeah, because it was more to do with the plot in the 80s, because the whole point of the first act is them getting all the stuff together to have their child. It suddenly became really political, which I thought was interesting.
Mm.
Overall, it got very positive reviews, with most of them saying it got amazing performances and paid homage to the theatre legend Stephen Sondheim in the best possible way, with 15 major publications all giving it very positive reviews. They announced, one of the actors just like leaked the fact that there was a cast recording like on the red carpet outside, which I'm so thankful for, because it is one of my most listened to cast albums. Yeah, Mel can see what song I'm listening to at any given moment. So it was
Hmm.
huh. Although, do you want to know what's scary?
Huh?
Do you want to know what's scary?
What? What?
Les Mis is like nearing the point of Into the Woods
Oh my
is.
God.
My Les Mis problem is so
Hmm.
bad. Anyway, um, yeah, and then Run Random Thursday, they were like Into the Woods cast album out tomorrow, and I was like, this is like as big of a Taylor as like a Taylor release to me. Do they not know that this is like sacred for me? The run was extended, and they got in like new actors to play the roles, again being similarly big names for theatre. I don't think any of them had like the mainstream appeal as Sarah Bareilles. So it was like Stephanie J. Block and her husband.
Yeah.
Actually, I think her husband was on like some Netflix show.
Mm.
And like Krista Rodriguez and Andy Carl.
Yeah.
Um, there was a CD and a vinyl. If anyone would like to buy me the vinyl, you'd be my hero. The cast recording won the Grammy for Best Musical Theatre Album. And in the 2023 Tony Awards, it was nominated for 6 awards, being Best Performance in a Leading of an Actor in a Leading Role for Brian Darcy James, Best Performance of an Actress in a Leading Role for Sarah Bareilles, Best Sound Design of a Musical, Best Direction for Leah Bassett, Best Performance by a Featured Actress in a Musical for Julia Lester, and Best Revival. Note on Julia Lester's performance, I was buzzing when she was nominated for that Tony. I was
Yeah.
so happy because her performance was genuinely amazing. It was like genuinely a very, very good performance. And like I was like, I feel like she should get nominated for some awards, but Little Red is such a strange role. So you never really know whether or not it's gonna get nominated. It did not win any of the Tonys it was nominated for, because it was like it was genuinely a stacked season. And again, as we said, I personally thought about COVID when I was watching it. I was like, oh, the giant could be COVID.
Yeah. Which is what I said. Giants COVID.
Giant's COVID. Um, I get why it's coming back now, because it always seems, because I mean, all major Broadway productions have come back after some kind of mass tragedy. Although the AIDS crisis was probably still going on when it first came out. I don't know how I feel about that. It went on tour. It did like a massive tour, like it stayed in a month in a lot of major cities. And now this production has seemingly like died. I don't want to say died, but it's not going anywhere. I'd love it if they brought it to London. Want to bring it to London? I'll be there. Want to bring it anywhere? I'll be there. And that has been Into the Woods.
Did it.
We did it. I have no idea where it's going to go next, because I think this musical will live on. It'll have a life forever.
Yeah, I think like we were saying at the beginning, it's definitely an immortal musical.
Yeah, it's stood the test of time at this point.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'll be back. I think I would definitely like to see it at some point. I'm kind of sad I haven't ever seen it.
I'll drag you
But
to
oh,
a
definitely.
showing of it. You know, the second it's in London, I'm like, we're going.
Are we going?
We're going. You'll get a "we're going" text in all caps from me and be like, oh fuck, here I go.
I'm crafting a really angry tweet about Rishi Sunak.
I saw you retweeted something from the Lib Dems earlier.
Yeah, I know. It's quite bad.
Yeah, it's bad when Nell's retweeting the Lib Dems. Do next year. Next year?
Next week.
Next week. I've got to stop saying next year. So we are continuing on our spooky season trend. Because
Yes.
would you class Phantom as spooky?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've seen him in a few different horror night things. So yeah, he's spooky. Not to
I
me, but
to you, he's your friend. I went on a Phantom themed ghost train in Austria.
I know. I'm sure I was there.
Yeah, we're doing Adam's Family.
Yes. I'm actually about to leave to go to an audition for Adam's Family.
Yeah, and
I probably won't get in, so don't expect me to be like next week if I'm really happy I got in. If I'm really sad I didn't.
next week, if Nell's like bashing the Adams Family to shit,
I probably will do that if I'm in it too.
I've done the Adams Family, and I hated my life when I was doing the Adams Family. Yeah, yeah. I've seen a very good school production of it. Shout out Toby. His school production was insane. So yeah, have we got anything else to say at the end?
No. Leave us alone.
If there's any
No,
major
please don't.
if there's any major Gatsby news, think of
keep
me in your thoughts and prayers as Gatsby nears performances. As Gatsby nears performances, keep me in your thoughts and prayers. Um,
Me too, because I have to listen to it.
you think it sounds good?
I do. I like it. I don't like Gatsby, but I think it does sound good.
See, my biggest red flag is that how much I love The Great Gatsby. See, I don't think I've explained this on the podcast because it always gets cut for time.
Really?
Yeah, I always end up cutting it because there's other important things that we need to talk about. But let's tack it on the end here. I freaking love The Great Gatsby. Sorry, Nell's just published a tweet about how our country's gone to shit.
Rishi Sunak.
Rishi Sunak.
Like it, please.
Talking about my love of The Great Gatsby. I'm liking it now.
Thank you.
So my love of The Great Gatsby. I read The Great Gatsby, was like, this is a good book. And then I started hearing all about, the whole Zelda Fitzgerald angle of it, and I was introduced to Zelda Fitzgerald as a person, and I was like, she sounds so cool. Let me read like a fictionalized account of her life. I read Z, a novel of Zelda Fitzgerald, and was like, she's so cool. And so I bought her book. I didn't read her book. And then I was like, let me read Tender as the Night, because I want to see what F. Scott Fitzgerald book is like when like Zelda isn't there to oversee it. It was shit. It was so shit. I do not like Tender as the Night. I know people are like it's F. Scott's best work. No, it's not. I didn't understand what was happening. It's all about his affair with like a 17-year-old French person. Meanwhile, he was locking Zelda in his house, for having an affair with a swimming person. Like, these two people were messy bitches. Anyway, then I read Ernest Hemingway, and I hated my life. I didn't finish it. I just like skipped the parts about F. Scott and Zelda. I will say, because I've heard rumors that the Florence Welsh Gatsby is going to dive deeper into the dynamic between Nick and Gatsby and like the more like gay side of it. And I'm like, slay, that sounds really interesting, because you can definitely see that there is a weird, like not totally straight vibe to F. Scott and Ernest Hemingway's relationship. If you want to get into that, Google it. It's fascinating. And then I read Zelda Fitzgerald's book. I'm one of the only 5 people in the world that has read Zelda Fitzgerald's book. And after reading it, I definitely do believe she came up with the line, I hope she'll be a beautiful fool, that's the best thing a woman can be. Yeah, I love The Great Gatsby. I freaking love musicals, as you couldn't tell. And so the dueling Gatsby is going to be the death of me. Also, we believe that Jeremy Jordan could get his Tony for this role, so
please.
Let's do it. We also really want to see Jeremy Jordan as Gatsby. Like, so bad. And I think that they'd be stupid not to bring it to Broadway this season before that other Gatsby comes in. So if you'd like more thoughts about The Great Gatsby, give us some money, we'll go see it, and then I will never shut up about it. Anyway, we're gonna say goodbye now because Nell has an audition to go to and I want
Yep.
to take a nap. Goodbye.
Bye.